Hi everybody, this is the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast.
Each badger marks the track with its own scent.
His black legs are short but very powerful for digging. In fact, the name badger probably comes from the French word bêcher, meaning digger.
It's that badger style.
On the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast this week, we have Dan Norcross, BBC Test Match special commentator. For me, made a big impression on the radio over the last 2 or 3 years. Was a regular down under for the Ashes series. We talked to Dan about his rise to the Test Match special box and 100 ball cricket. Graham Hardcastle, cricket journalist, joins me to debate it. Graham, slightly more pro it than me, it has to be said. I'm very much against it. Graham can see some benefits. You can listen to our debate in the second half of this podcast. But first of all, let's have a chat with Dan Norcross, commentator extraordinaire. It's with great pleasure on the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast this week. I welcome Dan Norcross, TMS expert, commentator, an ally of mine out in Barbados. How are you?
I am full of the joys of literally spring. There's floribundance, there's beauty, there's buds coming out. I mean, I've been gazing at bud bothering. This time of year is probably the first time I start to sort of rub new leaf growth on my naked chest and feel the fecundity of the world as it springs forth into the cricket season. It brings me nothing but joy, Badger.
It's a long time ago since we were out in Barbados, but today is the first day that the weather has mirrored it to any extent at all. And it's brought back a few memories for me, one of which was we had a bit of a trip to the Empire Club, an amazing place. Cedric, our guide, took us down to his club where the locals were all having a drink. We did imbibe with a couple of rums, it has to be said, but I remember running down the hill, pretending to be Charlie Griffith. You were pretending to be Sir Frank Worrell. You hooked me for 6 and I bowled you with a Yorker.
You bowled me with a Yorker. It all ends up as well. I mean, I don't think I saw it, actually. It was so quick. I mean, it was also about 10:30 at night, wasn't it? And I do blame the rum for that, because I'm sure if I'd been properly in peak of physical condition, I might have just been able to get a bat on it. But, you know, you were quick in the guys of Charlie Griffith. It
did lubricate me. I don't think I've ever bowled so fast, it has to be said.
You were limber. You were dead limber. It was extraordinary. I mean, wasn't that an extraordinary experience, though?
It was amazing, wasn't it?
That club, I mean, I live in Wandsworth in southwest London, and I haven't done the research on this, but I can think of one Test cricketer from Wandsworth, David Smith, played in 1995-6 against the West Indies, 1985-6, sorry, when he got blasted away by Patrick Patterson. And Wandsworth is about the same population size as the entirety of Barbados. The Empire Club is one of 15 clubs or so of a similar stature in Barbados. And on the wall, there were pictures of 5 Knights of the Realm. And they were some of the biggest names in cricket, weren't they? There was Worrell, there was Conrad Hunt, Charlie Griffith. It was just an unbelievable experience. And didn't it just make you think that they got the facility itself was quite ramshackle, wasn't it?
Yes.
I mean, the outfield was poor. The bar itself, brilliant bar, great atmosphere, but you know, I've been in many bars better than that in the Surrey Championship, 2nd 11, 4th division. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of held together with bits of duct tape, but it had such character, it had such quality, and it produced such incredible cricketers. And it just made me think about how much time we spend in England on money and facilities and God knows what else. And what you really need to tap into is raw talent and enthusiasm.
It's passion. It's passion, isn't it?
Passion, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was moving, I thought. I found it very moving as a place. It was an extraordinary place to visit.
I think one of the things I remember most about going there was the fact that as soon as the locals realised that we were sort of involved in cricket and we were from England, they were so proud to show us that wall as well. They were so proud to talk about the history of that place that they were drinking in. Yeah, you don't necessarily get that in England, do you? They were so proud to show us those framed pictures of the guys that you've mentioned. Some of the all-time greats of world cricket have all come from that little club. It was a joy to go there. It really was.
I mean, I reckon they must have a catchment area of about 20,000 people, really.
That's probably
on
being
the wall.
optimistic.
There probably is, yeah, probably is. But I mean, it's one of the best clubs. But do you know what I mean? Yeah, maybe 15, 20,000 people. And on that wall, there were how many? Were there like 18 Test cricketers? You could put out a team that you'd have been proud of in a Test match from that tiny little club.
I'll tell you what, the West Indies would be absolutely joyous to put that team out now, wouldn't they?
Wouldn't they? I mean, it was something else to behold. And also just, you saw the enthusiasm and care and love for that club as well from everybody in and around it. They don't have the money that you see in England, but they compensate for it 10 times over by, their knowledge and enthusiasm. They don't just love cricket. They know about it, don't they? I mean, how many conversations did we have with a variety of different people who just knew their onions, didn't they?
Absolutely.
It's what a place Barbados is. Really.
You'd gone home by the time I got my taxi drive to the airport, but the guy that Cedric had set up with me to take me back to the airport, it's probably a 20-minute drive, I think, and he basically just filled that drive with absolute passion about cricket, talking about Brian Lara, talking about Garfield Sobers, Malcolm Marshall. We passed the church that he'd been buried in, and my taxi driver basically just rounded my trip off. The full stop to my trip was him just rattling on about cricket for 20 minutes. It was absolutely superb.
That with the rum in the background as well, because don't forget, I mean, you do all this in the backdrop to utter paradise, in and out of the most tepidly beautiful sea in the world. That Sir Everton Weekes, apparently, did we hear that Everton Weekes goes out? Sir Everton Weekes goes out every morning for a swim. Now, I have a lot of respect for people in Whitley Bay who go out every morning for a swim. I love Sir Everton Weekes, but, I'd go out for a swim every day if I was Everton Weekes.
It's not too tough, is it?
It is not too tough. And then when he comes back, he sits around, he plays a bit of bridge, plays a bit of chess, talks about cricket. The temperature never gets above 85 degrees, never gets below about 80. There's a beautiful warm breeze. It was paradise, wasn't it? What a trip that was. And I'd love to go back there for a Test match next year. I mean, crikey, can you imagine that?
Let's make the date now. We're going.
Let's do it.
We're going. I basically was too tight to pay for BT Sport this winter, and so therefore I followed the Ashes and the various goings on in Australia through the BBC Test Match Special service, and so therefore my ears were filled with your mellifluous tones throughout the winter. Then who would turn up in Barbados but your good self as well? And it was nice to share the mic with you on a little bit of BBC commentary while I was out there too. But I call myself the Badger. One of the things that struck me about yourself, Dan, was that your dates. You get kind of basically you bring up scores, you bring up dates from things that people have forgotten. You are basically the Rain Man of cricket, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess. What I could do is I could remember the dates from the stuff I read when I was a kid, because when your brain was supple, it all goes in.
I think I can remember.
Yeah, well, the thing is, that's all I can remember really. And I was brought up by two teachers who were English graduates, and one of them was obsessed with cricket. My dad, and my mum was not. So my mum used to leave novels by Jane Austen next to me in bed and expect me to read them. And my dad would leave me Wisden and various cricket books. And I read the cricket books, and I read them obsessively, much to the upset of my mother. So, yes, I mean, the great 323-run opening partnership between Hobbs and Wilf Rhodes back at Sydney is very sharp in my memory. But if I'm brutally honest with you, I can't totally remember who England played in 2002. So my badgerdom is quite selective. I'm excellent up to about 1993, and then weirdly, the games I find hardest to remember are the ones I commentate on. And I know that sounds really strange, but when you do commentary, you sort of, I don't want to make great claims, but you sort of perform. So your mind is always on the moment. And frequently I'll come back, like a week later, and I think, what actually happened in that Test match? It's quite strange. So during the Ashes, the game I remember the most is the game I didn't commentate on, the Melbourne Test. I did the other four. So, I can recall Cook's 244 and all the details around it. But the games I was actually on, with the exception of Steve Smith, who's indelibly printed on my memory. I went to sleep with Steve Smith leaving balls outside the off stump under my eyelids. It was just constant. What a tremendous performance it was by him, has to be said. I mean, I'm not taking anything away. It was incredible.
I should imagine he wishes he'd kept leaving balls alone as well.
Well, I dare say he does now. How poignant that is. But yeah, as I say, my memory is very much locked into my past, I suppose, because that's when I absorbed most of my cricket knowledge. So sometimes I can sound like I know more than I actually do, let's put it that way.
Discover one of the most beautiful lifestyle resorts in the Caribbean at the Accra Beach Hotel and Spa. Located on the south coast of Barbados, this beachfront property offers 224 rooms, sparkling pools, 4 restaurants, 3 bars, an on-site spa, event and conferencing facilities, and a welcoming team providing unparalleled relaxation to make your stay a memorable one. What are you waiting for? Book your reservation at this award-winning hotel today and experience the Caribbean dream.
You, like me, I would imagine, took a radio to bed, basically listened to old Ashes series down under the covers and all the rest of it with the greats of TMS in the past. You know, in that box yourself, you seem to have had a very meteoric rise to the TMS box. I know I've been aware of your existence for some time now, but in TMS terms, you're a newbie, aren't you?
Oh, God, yeah, I'm the youth policy. I was 49 last week, and I'm quite definitely the youth policy. Yes, it's happened very suddenly, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for it. It's what I've always wanted to do, but I didn't really ever believe it was possible as a youngster. I suppose partly because there are so few people who get to do it that you can't really justify to family and loved ones. You say, do you know what, I'm going to be on Test Match Special. And they go, yeah, right, you are. You're not John Arlott. You're not Captain England. You're not a journalist for a major broadsheet newspaper. What bloody chance have you got? So I sort of discarded it as an ambition, I think. It was always there. I was always both jealous and joyful of what was going on the radio. But it happened out of nowhere, really. It happened out of... When I did this thing called Test Match Sofa, as you know, and when I was doing that, I had no expectation of being on Test Match Special. I thought what I was doing was something utterly different, and it was destined always to be different. And then without going into numerous rather tedious details, I left Test Match Sofa in the beginning of 2014 and thought that was it. I was never going to commentate on cricket again. And I just sent a speculative email to the producer at the BBC, Adam Mountford. I just thought, nothing ventured, nothing gained, Any chance? I know you probably want me dead, but is there any chance that you can let me have a go on a county commentary? And to my shock and immense surprise, he said yes. But when you do a bit of county commentary, that you don't then think that you'll be doing Test Match Special necessarily. You're grateful to be doing it, but again, that's just sort of dabbling in a way. I mean, not for the major locals, they're not dabbling. They're doing it as a job and they do every game. But I was being brought in as what they call a third voice. So you don't really know what's going to come of it, and you're just doing it to find out. And I got very lucky. I got given women's Test match in the first year I was with the BBC in 2014 at Wormsley, which was a terrific experience. And then I got a one-day international against Australia in 2015, 2 of them towards the back end of the year. Then I got my first Test match in 2016, which was the most thrilling experience, I think, of my life. I was very excited to do the one-day internationals, and I was scared. But a Test match, it's like real. It's totally, totally real. That's the thing that you always imagined when you were a kid, is that you could commentate a Test match. And I mean, it's quite emotional, actually. And sitting there next to Geoffrey Boycott and realising, oh my God, this is actually happening, was quite nerve-wracking, but also so enjoyable. And then I got a couple more tests last year, and when the Ashes happened, I sort of fell off my chair. I couldn't really believe it. So you never know where you are in these things, and you never know. You can't count your chickens, and you've no idea whether they'll give you work from one year to the next. But what you do get, you grab with both hands. And since I was never good enough to play Test cricket, for me, every Test match I do is like a Test cap. So for me, I've got 9 Test caps, and I sort of think of it like that, which I know is mental, but that's what it is, and it's a source of incredible pride. But most importantly, it's just the most joyful experience you can have in life if you're this way inclined. I can't tell you, it's not just a fulfillment of a childhood dream. The doing of it is so much fun. The people you work with are so much fun. The buzz you get. There's nothing like it.
You had a proper job as well, didn't you, at one stage? So you swapped a proper job for basically talking about cricket all day.
I did. Well, you see, I guess what I calculated was that the proper job I had paid quite well. I worked in the city as a project manager, but it occurred to me in my 40s that when I was 40, I thought, what do you do a proper job for that you don't like? You do it to earn money, to do the things you want to do. And it turned out, not very surprisingly, that what I want to do is watch cricket and talk about it with my mates. And I couldn't do that and do a proper job. So to me, I mean, like spending a week with you in Barbados, it's like that would never, ever have happened to me while I did a proper job. Going to Australia for 11 weeks, covering the
There are downsides.
money, yeah, money can't buy you that. You know, I'd rather be able to feed myself, support myself, and that's my life, because that's worth for me more than any job in the world.
So it was basically a midlife crisis that took you into the TMS box. Yeah. So what was it like then?
Recommend them.
What was it like then the first time you sat next down to Jeffrey? Because I know Jeffrey from his Yorkshire time. He was president when I was at the club, and he's a very how can I word this, complicated individual. I think underneath it all, he's got a very soft belly. He's a very kind of loving, caring individual. He can be quite gruff, and he doesn't suffer fools. So when you sit down at the microphone for the first time alongside him, what is that like? How did that play out?
It's absolutely petrifying. I won't pull any punches, because you know who he is and you know what status he has, and he's everything you've just said is absolutely true. He's one of the most. He's a complicated individual, although he probably wouldn't see it like that. He sees himself as a very simple individual. It's just I've never met anybody like him, and you're absolutely right. He's actually very generous and can be very kind to you. He's also very, very concerned that the programs that he's on have got good quality people around him, and he doesn't, as you say, doesn't suffer fools. So when you sit down with him for the first time, he's looking at you and he's thinking, who's this chump? I've never heard of him. He never played cricket. I've never come across him. I've never spoken to him. What's this all about? And in large part, that's because he cares greatly about the programs that he's on, So you're very, very conscious that you want to do as good a job as possible, not just for the listener, but because you've got a hugely well-respected broadcaster sat next to you who's a legend of the game, who's a legend of broadcasting. So, yeah, I mean, it's very, very concerning, because you don't meet people quite like him. I mean, they're fantastic broadcasters throughout the BBC. Phil Tufnell is an incredible broadcaster, but he has a slightly different manner to him, as you would have noticed. So I guess what I wanted to do was to try to earn as much as possible his respect. And you do that in a variety of ways. You do that by listening to what he's got to say, because he's got an awful lot of interest to say. And you've got to remember that. I mean, he's very easy. It's very easy for people to take the piss out of him. He's talking about, his rhubarb and his mother's binny and this, that, and the other, and he can't score runs in the pavilion. But he's actually a fountain of cricketing wisdom. There's no doubt about it. So first thing you got to do is listen when he speaks, and respect him for the man that he is. And then as you sort of begin to understand his rhythms and what he does, because broadcasting's basically a sort of, like I said before, it's kind of a performance, and what you're trying to do is create rapports so that you can get the best out of each other, and you just try to sit back when he's on more than with other people to understand where he's coming from. And then when you do, you find that there are things that he likes to talk about more, and he talks about them very well as well. So you engage in those topics, and it's still it's kind of remarkable, because you've got his voice right in your ear, in your headphones, and you're looking, and he's right there, and you're going, bloody hell. I'm talking to Jeffrey Boycott live on radio.
Thank you so much for listening to the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast. Your feedback has been both encouraging and very, very welcome. Our listeners are growing week on week. The podcast is now available on Spotify, Audio Boom, iTunes, YouTube, and all major platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on @cricket_badger. Email the show, cricketbadger@hotmail.com. Respond to the points made, make suggestions for future content, and play your part as the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast goes from strength to strength.
One thing about Jeffrey is that he's kind of a bit marmitey, isn't he, with people? And some people really don't like him. But I think the people that don't like him, they miss out on an awful lot because he does talk a lot of cricketing sense. Along the way, he talks a lot of cricketing sense to me.
Oh, God, he does. He really does. I mean, the thing with all good broadcasters is that some people like them and some people don't, actually. You know, the ones that everybody doesn't mind are actually the ones that you don't remember.
Yeah.
The Marmite ones are the broadcasters, really. And that's not to say that you should go out of your way to be deliberately contrarian or antagonistic, or that's how you should do your broadcasting. But it's important to remember that just because somebody finds somebody infuriating, that doesn't mean they're not a great broadcaster. I mean, they might. He can be quite bombastic, can Geoffrey, can't he? And that can sort of wind people up who want the sort of more gentle rhythms of TMS. But then similarly, there's people who love the fact that he's telling you as it is. He's being very straight talking. He's got firm opinions that have been born from years and years and years of playing it. You know, I mean, the man's got first class average for Yorkshire of 57. There's no one anywhere near him who played any number of games, you know, exception of Darren Lehman. He played on uncovered wickets. He was playing for 25 years.
He likes to mention
he's seen it all
as well, doesn't he?
He bloody does. And look, there's many things he likes to mention repeatedly. But there's no harm in that because cricket is a repeating game, you know. I mean, it's not that it's wrong anymore. It's still right. And like I say, I mean, ultimately what you want to do is get the best out of the people you've got around you. And the great good fortune you have on Test Match Special is to work with some of the finest broadcasters in cricket that there's, you know, ever been and ever likely to be. So what you must do is work with them and make the sound great, because you're never going to get these opportunities again. Like, you know, I did a session with Graham Swan at Edgbaston in 2016, and I don't know if you remember, but Moeen Ali was bowling a load of moon balls. It was like flying out of his hand, going through a head height, and it happened throughout 2016. He would bowl 2 or 3 per match, and I sort of turned to my right and I said, you know, why is Moeen Ali suddenly doing that this year? And lo and behold, of course, I've got England's most prolific off spinner of all time, who then gave me, for 10 minutes, one of the best technical explanations of what was going on, both mental and physical, that you could have wished for. And it was thrilling. You know, you pinch yourself. You go, I would have had that conversation with you if I'd been watching it at the ground, and we'd have gone, what the hell is going on? And we'd have speculated, and we might have come up with some reasonable answers. But I've got bloody Graham Swan there. You know, I mean, that's the heaven of it. That is absolute heaven, and you must never forget that when you're on the programme, that it's not hard as it is sometimes to think, you know, remember it's not about you. Remember that you've got all these resources here that you can riff with and you can find out stuff. Because first and foremost, we're cricket fans, aren't we? And what better luxury and privilege is it than to be able to turn to somebody who knows the game inside out and ask them what's going on? It's thrilling, you know.
To finish off, Dan, I want you to use your imagination and also your badgerdom. I'm going to give you honorary badgerdom.
Oh, thank you.
If you could have one commentator alongside you and you could go to any day's play that's ever happened in cricket and you're able to commentate on that, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant question. Okay, it would be Phil Tufnell, and it would be the last day of the Edgbaston Test. For a start, it would play to his strengths because it only lasts 2 hours. And he's on the whole time, okay? So it's just me and him the whole time.
Yep.
And because he gets so into the game, I can't tell you. He physically lives the game.
This is the Edgbaston Test 2005, is it?
2005.
Yeah.
So every shot and every run they got, Tuffers would have been, he would have been playing it, he'd have been in agony because he'd have been desperate for England to win, and he'd have seen Australia getting closer and closer, and he would physically embody the tension so much that I would be in bits. I'd find it hilarious and engaging, and then when England won, he would have exploded in a riot of relief, and it would have been, I think that's my answer, because if you've ever, it's hard for the listener to appreciate, but Phil he's not just a tremendous commentator, he's physically one of the funniest people you'll ever meet. It's a little bit of the silent comedian in him, actually. So bits of his body.
Well, that's not much good on the radio, is it?
Well, no, but when you're sat with him, it is, you see, because
you feed off that.
You're inhabiting the same space. So he brings this tension through his body to you, and he translates in your own reaction to him. And so the whole kind of atmosphere gets really intense and fervid, and you're kind of in it, but also in a beautiful way that he doesn't take it so. I mean, he inhabits it and believes it while it's happening, but he's also not so nutty that when it's over, he doesn't have perspective on life. You know, he's able to get over things, cricketing disappointments, in a way that, you know, some other commentators find a bit more difficult, in actual fact. So, you know, that would be box office. And if you had a camera on us while it was happening, you'd see one of the funniest things imaginable, actually.
Watch him squirm for 2 hours.
Well, he bounces up and down. He'd be up and down off his chair. He'd be all over the place. His body would be jerking in all sorts of crazy ways. His face would be animating. It would be, that would be something else. That would be box office.
I must admit that morning at Trent Bridge when he was alongside Henry Blofeld and the Stuart Broad was following that spell that was radio gold, because he got very excited during that. Just to finish off, Dan, what are you looking forward to most this summer? What's the golden date in your diary?
Well, it's tricky. I've got a few test matches that I'm doing, and I always look forward to test matches. So I've got the first 2 test matches I'm expected to do against Pakistan, and that first test at Lord's. I've never done a Lord's test match. I've been to many, but I've never commentated one. So that is going to be a real thrill for me. First test match of the summer, and everyone's really excited about it, as they always are, that first day of the first test of the summer, and it's at Lord's, and I'm on commentary, and that will give me a huge buzz. I mean, as I was there for the first ball of the Ashes in Brisbane.
Will they let you wear your big flowery shirts on? Well, you have to tone that down a bit.
No, tough titty. I wear what I want at Lord's. I don't expect ever to be allowed in the pavilion, but I don't go to Lord's to go in the pavilion. I'm an oval man, so I'm really not fussed by the highfalutin nature of Lord's. For me, I should be wearing as garish and repulsive a shirt as I want, and I'll be doing it from the media centre, and I'll just be loving every minute of it. As I say, the first ball of the Ashes at Brisbane, I wasn't prepared for how emotional I felt watching that. Everybody was suddenly, oh my God, it's the first ball of the Ashes, and it's only a ball. Nothing happened. It just went through like the keeper, nothing happened. But there's that just excitement, and that excitement of a Lord's Test right at the beginning of the summer that I'm really, really looking forward to. I think that's probably that's what I've got circled on my wall planner. You get your fixture wall planner by now. I've got 2. I've got one from Wisden Cricket Monthly, one from the Cricketer, one that I hang up in my house, and one that I take with me everywhere I go. And that's the one that's got the big red arrow pointing to it, going, yes, that's going to be great. But to be honest, the first day of the season was similar to me. Going off to Headingley to do the first day of the season, I was like a kid before Christmas. Unfortunately, Christmas Eve got postponed.
It could have gone better, couldn't it?
For day after day after day, didn't it? But, that's another story. But that's, I guess it'll be Lord's. Lord's on the 24th of May is the moment I'm most looking forward to.
It's been a pleasure listening to you this winter during the Ashes. Long may it continue, and also a big pleasure to have a few rums alongside you and share a few moments in Barbados. Dan Norcross, thank you very much for joining me this week.
James, thank you ever so much. It was a huge pleasure.
It's that Badger style.
Thank you to Dan for his contribution to the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast this week. Be good to listen to him as we go through the International Cricket Summer on the BBC. And now, 100 ball cricket. Graham Hardcastle, regular on the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast, joins me to debate whether there is a future for cricket matches with 100 balls.
Graham Hardcastle, good to have you back on the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast. 100 ball cricket. It's basically what everybody's talking about at the moment. The ECB's proposals to, in the year 2020, not have 2020, but to have 100 ball cricket. It seems like it's going to be a number of overs with a 10 ball over to finish, to make up 100 balls, the 100 ball countdown, to simplify it for the masses. I am a little bit sceptical about this, I have to say. What's your initial take on it?
To be honest, I've always been, this is even with the T20, the city-based T20 competition, when that was first mooted. I've always been fairly relaxed about it, to be honest. I've had reservations. The reservations with the T20, and we've spoken about this a lot, but just to recap were that I don't think the weather, is ever going to be able to help our competitions match those that are perceived to be the best around the world, the IPL, the Big Bash, and the free-to-air terrestrial TV. Now that is being addressed. Fantastic. I think that is a major step forward for county cricket or domestic cricket in this country. I've always kind of said I never believed that this competition would be able to match those for the reasons I've said. The weather, I still think, makes it impossible for it to be as good as the other competitions. But something new's coming in. It's going to have to take a bit of getting used to, and that, to me, still stands with the 100 ball cricket. I'll watch any kind of cricket that's put in front of me, whether it's third team Sunday League down the road or England, Australia. I genuinely love my cricket. I will watch anything. If they're going to bring it in, see how it works. It may be a roaring success. Who knows? I'm sure these exact arguments were being spoken about, 16, 17 years ago when T20 first came in, and they will rage on for the next couple of years. But my kind of perspective is, let's see how it goes. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then they have to have a look at it. The one thing I would say, from my point of view, in favour of the 100 ball stuff is being a new parent with a little girl who's just over 6 months. I would imagine around 2020 is going to be the time when we start taking her to a little bit of cricket. The shorter it is, the better.
Let's just have 3 over a side cricket. Let's dumb it right down. Let's dumb it right down so that your child, when she's 2, can understand it. Let's have 3 over a side cricket, and everybody will be happy, won't they?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, absolutely delighted. From a working point of view, it'd be a short day, that.
I'll tell you where I'm coming from. And I thought, as a few people did, that this was a bit of a joke when it first came out. I thought, blimey, what is this, April the 1st?
Yeah.
We've got a situation here where the shortest form of the game that we've always called the shortest form of the game, and I know 10-10's coming a little bit, but 2020 is accepted now around the world. It's what gets the audiences. The IPL, the Big Bash League, Caribbean Premier League, Pakistan Super League, etc., play T20. The NatWest T20 blast in this country. It's accepted around the world as being the shortest format, and everybody understands it now, and everybody plays it. Why on earth do we need to tinker with this? This is surely, to goodness, an admission by the ECB that they are so far behind the rest of the world with T20, a format that they invented, then basically sat back on their laurels, tried to get into bed with Alan Stansford and all the rest of it in the Caribbean.
Pretty uncomfortable bed at the moment.
But that went massively into backlashed into their faces, and it didn't go right. In that time, the IPL took massive strides forward. The Big Bash has caught them up, and the ECB are now surely admitting with this new format that they are so far behind the rest of the world in T20. They've got to pretty much invent something else and have another gimmick to actually make some kind of waves with this competition in the year 2020. They're missing a massive marketing ploy as well. It's the year 2020. They should be playing 2020 in the year 2020, not 100 ball cricket. I think they look like a joke.
Or the other argument, I'm playing devil's advocate here, it's just as simple as the BBC or whoever the terrestrial provider is going to be, I think it's the BBC, isn't it, have said, look, I'm sorry, we can't fit 3.5 hours into our schedule. We want this done and dusted before EastEnders. We've got 2.25 hours, fit something in or sod off.
Well, let me come back to you on that, because fair enough, 100 balls is less than 120 balls, marginally so. But we've got this situation now where they've got the 10 ball over at the end of it, whereas I understand it, they're starting to mute the fact that more than one bowler can play this 10 ball over. If you follow cricket as much as I do, and you've seen that the fact when games get tense, when games get tight, the fielding team takes ages to set the field. We've had timeouts in the IPL, all the rest of it. This 100 ball over cricket, with these bells and whistles that are added on the edge of it, isn't going to be much shorter than the existing 2020 game. Just one final point, Graham, before I let you come back in. They're saying that it's going to simplify cricket because everybody can count to 100. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't know anybody that can't count to 20. Even your daughter Adelaide can probably get most of the way to 20 by now, and she's 6 months old. They're not simplifying it, they're just making it gimmicky.
The one thing about all these kind of like little bits and bobs of arguments, this is the problem that I have with this new format. I have one significant problem, and it is the lack of information. That is the worrying thing, which makes all these arguments about you saying, well, you know cricket as well as I do, bowlers will take the time, and yes, that is correct. But for all we know, there could be significant penalties for going over time? We don't know that. They haven't even decided, as you say, whether 10 ball over is going to fit, how many bowlers are going to be able to bowl it. So those are the major things that nobody knows about. Going to be hundreds, pardon the pun, but little bits of rules that haven't even been thought about yet. And I think that's what makes it so difficult to form a really, really definitive argument against it. However, the worrying thing is that from the things that have come out from the players, it sounds like the ECB have just railroaded this through without really consulting them. Having gone to them and said, are you all right with a T20 competition, a new T20 competition coming in? Yeah, we're fine. Let's go for it. Oh, hang on a minute. It's not going to be a T20 competition at all. Well, you didn't tell us that. Perhaps it would have been a completely different response first time around if you'd have told us that.
But who have the ECB consulted on this? Because they've come out with this announcement. As you've just said, they haven't consulted the players. Supporters, the surveys and stuff they've done with supporters never mentioned this format. So basically the ECB just basically had all of these consultations and just come out with something completely different. It doesn't make any sense. And then, in a way, they're basically sticking two fingers up at your normal cricket supporters, your passionate cricket supporters who follow the county championship, who follow the T20. And you know as well as I do that you've got your stick in the mud county championship people, for want of a better phrase, who don't like T20. But you've got an awful lot of people on the county circuit now that really have embraced the NatWest T20 Blast. Spectator figures are going up year on year for the T20 Blast. But they're basically saying, well, we're going to take you for granted. We're going to take you for granted because you're our existing cricket fans. We're going to try and appeal to a new audience again. That's what T20 was doing.
It's just a couple of points. One, going back to what we were just talking about with the lack of information and so many things to be decided, it would not surprise me at all if your opinion changed on it within a year. You know, they might come out with something yet that you say, I love that. That's fantastic. I can understand it now. Unfortunately for the ECB, first impressions are always pretty important, and the first impressions aren't great. The other thing I would say is, as we stand now, the NatWest T20 Blast will become a far stronger competition on the back of what's going on. Because with the weight of opinion against it at the moment, it sounds like the majority of cricket fans are going to be trying to really boost the Blast. You know, we'll probably want to watch that more than they will the 100 ball stuff. It might not be the case in 5 or 6 years' time because, as I said before, this 100 ball stuff might be a roaring success and people gravitate towards that over time. But initially, for the first couple of years, I would imagine you will get stronger crowds at the Blast than you will at the 100 ball stuff. That would be my guess as things stand now. Which from our point of view, as county cricket lovers, that can only be good.
It's hard to kind of stick up for T20 cricket as being the traditional form of the short format, isn't it? 'Cause as you said, it's only been around since the early sort of noughties. It's if you're going to tinker with a format, this is the format to tinker with. I think you can't deny that. We have got years and years though now of statistical, high scores in T20 cricket, the highest innings by a team and all that kind of stuff.
It's only 15 years. But WG Grace has played it, is it?
But cricket is a big statistical game, and you can't compare. You're going to have a whole new raft of statistics, aren't you? You're going to have another level of stats on Cricket Info because it'll be T20 stats, 100 ball stats, because you can't compare the two.
So be it. That's not a major issue, is it? I've heard the argument that like IPL teams aren't going to look at 100 ball stats and things like that. You could look at it the other way. It might make players more attractive because if they go and score 100 in a 15 over game or a 16.4 over game or whatever it is, they're really going to have caught the eye, aren't they? Been far more aggressive. They've got far less time. They've certainly got less time to shine, so they're going to have to be a bit more gung ho. These franchises around the world are going to think, crikey, I don't know. I'm picking a name out. A Tom Kohler-Cadmore. Look at what he's just done. He scored 120 off 45 balls. We'll have some of that. That could be a positive.
It'd be nice to think that the ECB could put as much imagination, if that's the right word, into the county championship as they are doing with the T20, and to really try and bolster the long form of the game as well. Yeah, I know they don't get quite as many bums on seats, and there isn't the glamour on the county 4-day circuit, but I think you ask any player, you ask any of the journalists, you ask a lot of spectators which format means the most to them. it is the county championship. Winning the county championship is probably still the pinnacle of the county season.
And it always will do. There's no doubt about that. And yes, I am disappointed that there hasn't been more, as you say, imagination or resources thrown at the championship to make it a better competition. But this is the situation we're in. A lot can change over, it wouldn't at all surprise me if this time in 3 months, this time in 6 months, we're having a podcast chat where we're talking about a major U-turn from the ECB because the players weren't happy. But from my own personal point of view, let's see how it goes. You can't make a success of something unless you try it. The ECB, they won't die wondering, will they? They won't linger on something.
Well, this is one of the problems I've got with the ECB. The ECB tinker far too much. They tinker far too much. If you bring in something that you believe in and you believe it to be right and change it a year later, you were originally wrong. You've got to basically give competitions a chance to breathe and live and let spectators understand how they work, when they're played, what the ramifications of that tournament are, and buy into that tournament. If you give something a year and it hasn't quite done exactly what you wanted it to do and you change it after a year, A, you made the wrong decision to bring that tournament in the first place, and B, you should have more faith in your original decision and let punters actually start to actually grow to love things. If you change things year on year on year, you don't get that feeling of loyalty to a particular competition. People don't understand what day it's played. People don't understand how many points you might need to qualify. People don't understand what you're actually qualifying for. The ECB changed things far too much.
Yeah, I agree. But all I'm saying is in this instance, if we give it a go and people are still dead against it come the start of the competition, I wouldn't worry too much about it because there's every chance that it could change within a year or two. We're in this position. Let's give it a go. If it works, fantastic, great decision. If it doesn't, then revert back to T20 and everybody's delighted.
What would have been wrong with the ECB saying, right, we're bringing in this new competition, we want it to be as successful as possible, we want as many people to get there as possible, it's going to be a 2020, but we're going to make it the best 2020 the world has ever seen. We invented this sport, we're introducing this in the year 2020, we're going to basically do this, that and the other, but the format's going to be 2020. It's the format that people around the world understand, the players around the world understand. This is what we're going to do, but we're going to make ours the best.
Then your first game gets rained off.
Well, the first 100-ball game could get rained off.
Well, of course it could. Yeah, I mean, that's my point. I don't think whatever they do,
you can't go into a new format thinking with that defeatist attitude, can you? You've got to make it.
No, you can't.
You've got to put it in the calendar where the sun is, and you've got to make it sing and dance. And if it does rain for a month, well, so be it. But you've got to basically plan for success. And you plan for success for me with a 20-over game, because that is the game that people understand. One last thing. Duckworth Lewis is one of the most complicated things in sport.
Oh, don't start on that.
But if you get a Duckworth Lewis situation when the last over of the game is a 10-ball over, how do you work that out?
Well, I'm one of those people who can't count to 100, so you're asking the wrong person there. I haven't a clue. There's going to be something. They're going to have to come up with a format, aren't they? How it's going to work.
I suppose you shave balls off, but if part of your fancy gimmicks for this tournament is a 10-ball over, then yeah, potentially that 10-ball over ends up being a 5-ball over, doesn't it? If you reduce the overs of the games. The ECB with this new 2020 format, for me, seem to have got, whether you like it or not, and I would have preferred to have seen them put all their eggs into the T20 blast basket, but that's another debate for another day. We're obviously going down this different route. We're going down this city-based route. Fair enough. Let's get behind that. They kind of made me change my mind a little bit. I'm going to get behind the city-based route. But then they start to add on these other gimmicks, and I'm thinking, well, you've lost me again now. Why on earth don't they just one day announce, right, we're going to have this city-based deal. Things are being drip-fed through. We now know the venues, but we don't quite know how it's going to work. Just announce the thing. Let us get behind it, let us understand it, and let us live and breathe it. It's just far too complicated. The launch should be far easier than this, surely.
Look, yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. I would have much rather them to have stuck with T20. My personal opinion. But we're in this scenario, and I say if they're going to tinker with a format, this is the format to tinker with. I think the way that England have played one-day cricket has revived that format for us in this country. 4-day Test cricket is still the pinnacle, always will be, always has been. So if you're going to go down a route of having a little bit of a play and experiment, then try it with T20.
I hope you're right on one of the points you made there, that the Test cricket and 4-day cricket will always be seen as the pinnacle, because I'm starting to wonder whether the emphasis is going far too far away away from the longer form of the game into the razzmatazz and the gimmicks rather than actually remembering what the history of cricket's about.
We'll see, won't we? I am absolutely desperate for Test and 4-day cricket to remain as it is. The rest, there is so little information that we can only just ride it out and see what happens. Let's hope it's a success. That's all we can say at the moment.
Graham Hardcastle, always a pleasure to have you, and I'm sure this isn't the last time we talk about this on the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast. Hopefully, I might be a little less irate and a little more accepting of it next time we speak, because things will have changed a little bit, but I'm a little bit concerned myself.
We'll see.
It's that Badger style.
Thank you very much to Dan Norcross, to Graham Hardcastle for joining me this week on the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast. We'll be back again next week for more cricket chat. Join us here. See you then.
I don't like cricket. Oh no, I love it.
It's that Badger style.